Okay, yeah, here. Do you want to hand it to me? Because I can.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our special city council work meeting for January 15th, 2020. I will start by accepting a motion to temporarily suspend our work meeting for January 15th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are suspended for a few months. Okay. Wendy, back up.
We.
We are? Okay, awesome. All right, thank you for being patient with us. All right, we will go to item 1.1, review of city council policies and procedures.
This is on the agenda as requested by council to have a discussion about the council policy procedure, so.
So there's a couple typos that'll just get fixed if it comes back, or when it comes back.
I was also, as I reviewed the rules of procedure one, just since we've changed things in here as well, the very last page is talking about elected official benefits. This only specifies the mayor that is eligible for those benefits, so I know we've updated and changed things since then, so that needs to be updated to include everybody.
Good catch.
I've got that circled.
Thank you. And just a clarification, I guess, under the annual open meetings training, it says the mayor shall ensure the council, but does that fall under his responsibility or under you as the city attorney, John?
The chair of the council.
Just the chair, okay. I just, like I say, I was.
So I guess this question, what of these, help us go through here, what of these are statutorily required? What are things that were put in place that really never been reviewed, that are just up to us? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Maybe
so.
take
So if
us
you look at the
through
very
that.
first, these are basically the statutory required duties of the mayor. Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That he's the chair of the council, that he exercises ceremonial functions, keeps the peace, and enforces the laws. That's what the statute says. So you have to do that. Ensure that all applicable statutes and ordinances and resolutions are faithfully executed and observed, and perform duties prescribed by statute, ordinance, or regulations. So if you give him something specific to do, that's a duty. Other things that are like in the statute is like the mayor can marry people. And there's a couple others that they're just statutory, there's nothing we can do about it. So these are really all of them.
And then I had a question on city council regulations, number A, obviously, letter A. It talks about, that we avoid contact with developers. And I think that probably, either we need to abide by that or we need to adjust it. Because I believe that all of us have contact with developers who reach out to us to ask us questions and things like that.
That's on page 1.
Yeah, it's city council relations.
It's representing the council, yeah.
And I remember the time why that was put in there, but I don't know how it does when it backs up to city ordinance or state statute. My understanding, the elected official can have contact and communication with developers, but planning commission cannot outside their planning commission meetings.
Right.
It makes sense.
It's very clear about that, state statute wise. Am I misunderstanding that, John?
No, planning commission shouldn't talk to any developers, only when they're on the dais. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the first sentence I think should stay for sure.
That second sentence.
And the second sentence seems like we should either tweak it or get rid of it or whatever you guys think. Because I mean, obviously.
I think the first sentence suffices, right? And I don't know, I've always read as council members, mayors, our form of government, mayors just part of the council, this need to be mayor and council members. Do not have authority to commit city positions without or consent of the entire council.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had the one issue with Herriman with the hog mall, right?
Well, this right here says, although written to council members, these guidelines also are applicable to the mayor, so we wouldn't have to add that because they're all applicable to him unless we say they're not.
That was my understanding, but then I think that covers it. The second one is redundant. There may have been that's I guess what I'm getting at is some of these things were put in place at a certain time for
That's
whatever
exactly right. That's
situations
why
were.
it's good to always review these things, because some are Yeah, as you saw, it was driven by state statute, some are driven by our ordinance, we had to go back and change that. And some are just, the council felt strongly about certain operating procedures at council and how they should interact on things, and they want to hold each other a little bit of accountability that way.
I'm fine with the third sentence of members should refer potential developers to staff for information on development.
I think we just strike that second sentence.
I agree.
And then the last sentence,
Should be
avoided. Yeah.
Okay.
And the last sentence, this one makes me pause. Staff receives direction from council through city manager. I'm fine with that one, but then the last sentence of council members should be circumspect in their request for information from the staff.
Contradicts each other.
The way I,
And to a certain degree,
yeah,
but like if I have a financial question, I should be able to email Alan and ask him a financial question.
yeah. The way I kind of interpret that isn't that we can't, that we should obviously be respectful of the amount of information we ask for, but the other piece for me to that is that we include Brett in the loop in that when we ask for it, because I don't think that he has an issue with us asking for that, but I think
Absolutely not.
I think what it does is it lends to consistency and continuity in the information that the whole council receives.
One, how much workload.
Absolutely.
You know, some of these
It's the word of the
constantly
workload.
going
Oh,
to
sure.
a staff member.
Because I can tell you this honestly, in my tenure here, it's actually been 10 years in this position, is what happens when council goes right directly to a staff member. Sometimes it's your after hours, and you get a chance to get caught up on all your emails and stuff. You have a question. The moment you text them or email them, they are working, and you've seen that you respond. And I think the workload wise, I like to triage that and just have respect. Okay, I'll get to them on Monday. It can wait, or it can wait till tomorrow morning. I get it because your time restraints, because of your daytime activities, you have to get caught up at 9. But if you forward that or send that, or if you can send an email, you can actually send it by time. Because I know it's several things, I'm not going to call staff by names, but they work hard. Because of some of the things that was said last week about our key staff, your exempt levels, put a typically 65 to 80 hour work week in. And that's not fluffed up, that's real. So I'm trying to get them they want to be responsive, they're good people that way. But we can just sensitive to that.
Yeah, so how would we write that? Leave it, or how would you, because I do too, and sometimes it's just simply because I need to understand something, so I'll call and say, help me understand how this, that kind of thing, and so I want always to be able to feel like I can do that, but requests, asking them to obtain, do a task for me or something like that, yeah, I think that should go through you so that you understand the
But
work
even
that
the
we're asking.
information, sometimes I have to go refresh their memory. But I would just, you don't have to go through me. If I'm in the loop, I'm actually pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah,
It's when you're saying, I need this done by, and it's a big human workload.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they have going on, what their time restraints are.
but
I think there's a
sometimes I
difference
make
between
a call.
making a request and trying to set their priorities, right? That's
Yeah.
Brett's job, is
Right.
to set their
Right.
priorities
That's what
and
you
their
asked me to
directives,
do.
yeah.
Right,
But I think one of the issues that comes up, not intentionally at times, is that regardless of the workload they have, if a council member asks something, they're gonna push everything aside to
Yeah, me
focus on what we've asked for, and that's where,
Really not that important.
yeah, and that's where, like I say, I think as long as Brett is in the loop, they at least that can be massaged after the fact of what's the timing of that look, without them feeling like it needs to be
I do
happening
with a smile
right
on my
now.
face, council, because I know how they're feeling. I see it happening, and I've seen it happen numerous times. On a Saturday or Sunday, they get an email, and all of a sudden, I know they're working. And I validate that because they give you an answer that same day. And so, we
As
like
far
that.
as timing
because
of
of that
when I
response.
send an email, like there's no way to do that. I'm gonna send an email when I send
Yeah,
it.
I know, I just wish they
Totally
would
up
jump
to you
on
guys
it.
when
but sometimes I make a
I would
phone
expect
call.
them to act on it during business hours, but
Yeah.
this is an extracurricular activity for most of us. I have to do it at night.
That's why I try to explain, I know when you have to do your work to get caught up, it's just, and I know our team here, are so responsive, and they wanna give you a good job, and they wanna look good in your eye, and that's why they'll get right on it.
And sometimes
And you want
I
me to
make
take a
phone
shot
call.
at these last two sentences, besides them,
Yeah.
then bring it back?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because sometimes I make a phone call, so it's hard to keep you know, loop you in on a phone call or something, you know, and it's not intended to put workload on anybody, but it might just simply be.
What the team's
Maybe
really good about
considerate instead of
When
circumspect.
when you call them, they'll let me know, hey, I talked to Sherry, or I talked
Right.
to Jared. And that keeps me in the loop what is being discussed, so I can make sure that the team as a whole knows what's going on. Does
Okay.
that make sense? Just
Yeah.
like you want respect, when one councilman requests something, then all of you get the same information back.
Right.
It keeps you all in the loop what that request is. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm okay with you copying me. You said it better than I just tried to say it.
Oh, I just said if they CC you, then you could always then, reply to staff and say, hey,
Tap
we
the
don't need
brakes.
to answer right now. We probably will,
You can get on.
but you can at least,
Let's work
tell
on it.
us we
Let's
don't
run it
need to.
Monday. Like I
if we
said,
can, if we have to.
you have a great team here, and it's very rewarding to me, I get to work with them, but they want to do the best job, and they tirelessly, put a lot of time in making that happen for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, John, if you wanna
Mhm.
just kind of say, and
This changes all the time.
so. Sure.
And you guys are good on text messages or phone calls. For the most part, you guys are good about calling me after and say, hey, or before, and say, hey, you mind if I read the absent? They just, you wanna get just a simple answer, and they'll get right on it, give you that quick answer. I've not been too oversensitive about that, but there was a time that came very sensitive.
And my only issue is that, just staying in the loop, because if a citizen reaches out to me, then I feel beholden to be part of that, getting back to the citizen, you know what I mean? Because I think it's super important that they always feel like, they can reach out to us and we're gonna help them with certain things, right?
So,
Never feel like they're being handed off, kind of a feeling, you know what I'm saying?
so do we just strike that out, or how do you wanna handle it? The staff receives direction from the council through a city manager. Okay, that's true, but the council member should be.
No, sorry, I moved on to B, sorry.
B, talking about complaints.
Complaints.
Okay,
Why don't we just have him respond back, city manager?
and we do that,
Yeah,
we're actually following up pretty close.
That's what she's saying, though. She
Just
said
something that
she
says,
should be the one
city
that answers.
manager and or staff should respond back to the
To the
council
council
member.
member.
yeah, just make
To
sure
the
that,
council member.
and I'm not saying we're not, it's just that, I
There's,
don't wanna feel
I've-
like I'm not following procedure by.
there's been a few times that they've gotten that handled, and then, time of sure they have not right back to you and
Yeah,
give you the resolution.
yeah, just to keep us in the loop, just CC us on emails or blind copies if you want to, but just so that
Yeah,
we.
Jared's had a couple in his district where we actually brought the resident in and met with them, and then we responded back what our outcomes were.
Yeah, just that kind of thing, just make sure that we're getting feedback, especially if we received the original complaint, that's a big deal.
I'm just trying to make sure my notes are clear. So are you saying that you want us to send the response back to you to
Yes.
respond to the resident?
No.
No, just make sure
we
we're
have to,
copied
and then
in
you're
so that-
copied.
We're just
Okay,
gonna
that's
clear
what I wanted
the
to make
Close
sure.
the
I was
loop.
like, I'm not
Yeah.
clear.
Cause I don't think
So
we need to
for an
create more
example,
work and more
That
steps.
meeting happens, and then I see him, I'm walking my dog in the neighborhood, and I say, hey, how did that go? And he's like, oh, well, we did this and
We
that.
did
And I
that
have
one
no
thing.
You
idea
don't
what
know.
happened.
Yep,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
just so that we're on the resolution part of it too.
The only suggestion I have on B is citizen complaints received by individual council members should refer to the city manager for investigation and resolution. In my 4 years, there's been several people who have an axe to grind sometimes, right? With whoever's in charge, city manager, assistant city manager, whoever. Just add the word delegation and resolution, right? There are people who interpret that as city manager has too much power. If I have a
Oh,
complaint
yeah.
against the city manager, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you guys have
That's
the
good.
power.
Yeah, but sometimes people don't understand that.
In fact, I have no problem you having all that power.
And then it goes, and then it explains there's different departments, et cetera.
You guys have any more on B?
Nope.
On C, I was just curious, for the record, is that still what we use?
Is that the recording program that we use?
No, is it files, what is our recording, is it still,
I have the
we
same
still don't use
question.
public records?
It's just a file transfer, I'm not sure what the actual recording system
Okay.
is.
I would
Is it
suggest
still
that we,
SDR?
recording system too.
Extron is the.
Extron.
I would suggest that we strike any reference to a specific program,
Just digitally recorded.
just that it's digitally
Yep, it's
recorded.
just digital.
Yeah, that way, obviously, as times change, needs change, programs change, there's no one that tries to get picky over wording.
And we do change things all the time.
Yes,
You probably strike the rest of that, just the meetings are digitally recorded.
digitally recorded, yep.
And the digital recordings are written in, so.
Because it's not even done in the recorder's office anymore, it's right there.
Yeah, just update that one just so it's kind of known what it actually has to say.
So a question in E, where it says the council's proper role is to provide policy direction to the negotiators, i.e. city staff. In my conversation with staff, one of their consistent complaints is that they don't have a clear policy direction from staff. And they're sometimes left, or from the council, that they're sometimes left in a lurch without a clear direction. I don't know when we talk.
Are you talking in general, or as it relates to negotiations?
I think it's related to a lot of things, but this specifically in negotiations, you know, this is talking labor negotiations, leases, redevelopment issues, land acquisition, all that stuff. I'm not sure that the council has collectively decided on a list of priorities or direction or policy saying, these are the things we'd like you to consider, here's your priorities, here's your, you know.
I understand, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I guess as it relates to this one, I think, I don't know, for me, I think those, when it comes to negotiations, those are on a case-by-case
Sure.
basis. Depending on those negotiations, I think the broader is kind of what you're referring to in terms of policies, when we are, in terms of just negotiations, the broad topic of what the city's priorities are. Is that accurate or not so much?
I used this analogy before of Alice in Wonderland. So Alice comes to a fork in the road, there's a tree and there's a cat in the tree. And Alice asks the cat, which road should I take? The cat says, well, where are you trying to go? Alice responds, I don't know. The cat says, well, then it doesn't matter which road you take. And I think that's kind of what's happening with our staff sometimes is, if we haven't told them what our destination is, what the outcomes we're trying to achieve or we think are important, they're sometimes left wondering which road to take, if that makes sense. And so when I'm asking the question, there's two levels here, right? There's a general set of priorities and direction and goals that we want them to work on, and then there may be specific direction on individual negotiations. So in this paragraph, let's just take this paragraph as it relates to negotiations. How do we provide the policy direction to the negotiators? I mean, that's our proper role. How are we doing that?
Every negotiation is case by case.
Okay.
So I don't think there can be any basic construct for staff to follow in negotiations. Literally, we're the negotiators, we're the decision makers, so literally everything has to be brought back to us.
Yes.
How do you feel?
And that's the purpose for the closed sessions, to
Right,
discuss
where-
those issues.
Where do we have to go?
So we get some direction, and then we go out and work on that again, and we come back with our options, and again. But there is, I know there's sometimes we leave a meeting because we try to cram so much information in, we walk away going, okay, on this item, I remember what we're supposed to do, and we round table and try to figure that out. We have to go back, we listen to the minutes to try and get what we're being told to do.
Yeah.
To me, this goes back to the first one, no member can commit this to anything. We're gonna have conversations and be part of negotiations. It's not up to staff only to negotiate. I'm guessing this was put in place at some point where there was an issue. Right?
That's why policies are created.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
I'm gonna name that for you.
personally, I think it's our job to give as much direction as possible. But the decision, I mean, I have a hard time with this whole section because because it really lands with us. It's not the staff
Yeah,
to
and that's,
negotiate.
that's kind of the question I wanna ask, look, not getting really specific or, this case or that case or thing. I've been attending city council meetings for 7 months now consecutively, and I've seen times where the council seems surprised by, why are we even negotiating this? What is happening here? What, you're sitting down and here's a proposed MDA and you're like, wait, do we even want an MDA on this project? That kind of thing. And so I'm concerned that the city staff is sometimes spending a lot of time in negotiations or efforts on projects that the city council wouldn't want them to be spending their time on. They're just something we would say no to in principle and move on. So that's why I'm asking about this policy direction to negotiators. I don't necessarily have a good answer here. I just wanted to bring the question up for discussion, is how do we articulate to them what we want them to be working on and what we don't want them to be working on? That's kind of the question, right?
And it's a challenge, because I think that even when we have, and we've seen this multiple times, even when we have a project that we know the direction we're going on, just the pieces of that project become so fluid that it literally changes daily in that, and it's unrealistic to think that all of us can be available all the time for those minor details, and so there certainly has to be latitude and leeway for them to go, and it might take them down a road that ultimately we don't choose to follow, or it takes them down the road to where they get to a point where they say, you know what, this isn't good for the city, and abandon it. And I think that's the challenging part of that is, again, do we want them to spend time unnecessarily on something that ultimately we're not gonna support? Absolutely not. But I think that sometimes because things are so fluid and there's so many moving parts to it, Automall, for example, how many times have we had to flip direction on what we've been trying to accomplish there? And it's those things that happen on the fly, and I know that Brett and other key members of staff, when they hit those things, and we may not have a meeting scheduled to where we can go, to sit down with all of us in the room to talk about it, that he's reaching out and he's making sure that they are going down the road. And so to Jared's point, I think because it is such a case by case and a fluid thing, I think it's very difficult, but I completely understand what you say. I guess the only thing I would say maybe a little different is there are components, I think, at times, or requests at times as part of MDAs or things that we may not have discussed prior, and so that may, if you want to use the word surprise, but I don't feel like in the broader scope of things and in these larger products that I particularly have felt like we've been surprised by something major. There's certainly been little surprises along the way. And again, that's the fluidity of those negotiations.
Now, one of the things we've learned, and what Jared's kind of alluded to, is you guys are the decision makers, absolutely.
Yep.
And in between council meetings, when we're working on a big project and the developer's coming in and what his request is to bring to you is just very unreasonable. It doesn't pencil out financially. What we do is we say, okay, it's a dead end. We actually should come and tell you and show you why we think it's a dead end, what the proposal was, and let you tell us, yeah, it's a dead end, and so we have agreements, versus say it's a dead end, we need to send the developer back and come up with something different. You just see all options that was offered, so you're clear on that, because if we say no to it, you may say yes.
Yeah, let's take the stormwater issue as an example, right? Staff and engineering looked at the options a long time ago and kind of came to a conclusion this would probably be 1C would be the best solution. Makes the most sense.
As long as it did
right
for development.
But this council was asking for, well, what were the options you excluded, and why did we exclude those? So I think the process of negotiation, the process of deliberation should be a little more clear for us as members of the council. And I think as a council, we need to be a little more clear in articulating the specific direction we want them to go. I mean, if they're having to go back and listen to minutes to find out what we actually wanted them to do, we're not being clear, right? I mean, we need to.
But sometimes that is a great resource for us too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, and that's the nature of government, right? It's not just, you
Too much
don't,
in one meeting.
well, you're not going into the CEO's office and doing what he wants, there's 5 people you gotta consult with, and it is messier, and it takes longer, and that's just the way it is.
That's government.
When it comes to this particular section, I actually think either we strike the entire thing or actually reverse it, to say that on occasion a council member may be assigned to work with staff. It should be the other way around.
Yeah,
Well, that's not a bad idea, cause you thought about other committees that you might wanna be on, and you brought some of those committees up already. Maybe some of these bigger developments that we look for your direction, who has the time to meet with us when we meet with this development? When we start figuring out what
Like, the
what
council,
deal
that's the
might
thing
be.
is, this body should be represented in any negotiation. Like, there should be no negotiations taking place without a member of this body. Otherwise, those conversations need to be, someone comes in and says, we'd like to do X, Y, Z, well, this is kind of typically how the council looks at it. Have you go to them we can just have you go to them and they can tell you yes or no, or we can run the major points by them and.
One thing I'd ask you with that, is, I don't have a mind of a council being there in those meetings, that's not the issue. But they go on almost every day for the same person, and I don't know who of you has that kind of time to get out every single day to keep.
Sometimes those people will have to wait, I mean,
It's that fluid though.
I know there's some things that need to be expedited, time constraint, but part of our role, I've been saying this for years now, part of our role is to slow those things down and make it go through the proper process, etc. So there's, whether you've got the same person coming in here every single day, sorry, you gotta wait until one of them can be here.
And some of the same people you all like, and maybe just want everyone to slow it down, and they go to use it for slowing down.
I mean, there's some things that are a no-brainer, all 5 of us say, yep, that's a priority, let's get it done, right? Then we do what needs to be done to fast track it, clear direction can be given, you guys just go do it, but if there's a negotiation going on,
I don't like to
this
say
one.
negotiation or looking at the choices to put.
I call it
Working
details.
through everything.
I don't necessarily, I agree with you on the negotiation side, but again, I think that there is a lot of discussion that happens daily, like you just said, that is more about the details than the negotiations.
That's what I mean
And
by-
I don't wanna get those
Here's
two
what we're-
confused.
Here's what we're proposing,
Yeah.
and their job is to look at and say, well, this is kinda how they generally look at it, or what fits our
Yeah.
zoning ordinance,
Right.
whatever, this is what you'd have to
Yeah.
talk them into, etc. Like, that's their role, is to filter that
There
part,
is a-
but.
But there's a point of diminishing returns for our time, right? There's a level where it's like,
That's
staff
not a
needs to carry it, and then there's a place where we're in it together.
That's just filtering
There's a
it,
negotiation,
and
and figure out what the terms could be, so we just want to
Yeah.
negotiate.
If they're asking for more, something that's gonna have to be a subjective decision from us, then it crosses over that line.
Yeah,
I-
yeah, that's true.
I agree, and I think they
Just-
recognize that
Just to
too.
what you're saying and getting to, I know just this week, people we had in here last week, and some of you wanna move fast, some we wanna move slower, and we're saying, okay, but they're in here and talking to us daily. And it's not a negotiation at that point, it's really finding out what the terms will be, so we have something to know what negotiation is.
Right.
Does that make sense? So I'm trying to figure out a definition between where we're at and where you're at. Does that help?
To me, it should be pretty black and white, I mean, there's always some gray area, I guess, but are they coming in with a proposal that meets standards, etc., that can be put through the process, or are they asking for something extra that's gonna have to require a subjective decision? If so, it crosses over that line to where you collect the information, bring it to us, how do you guys want us to proceed on this?
Yeah, we
It's
don't
like-
give up any money or anything like that.
But again, some of that stuff is part of some of these natural city processes they have to go through anyways. And so I don't think any of us are saying here that we want to stifle or slow down any of the process, other than be cognizant of, just like you said, where it crosses over. And
But for 2 examples, so Mountain Ridge, I mean, there was